Welcome back to another top 10 video. And I say another just to plug my previous one. It was the top 10 most anticipated DCU projects, and since we've only had 10 announced so far, it was like kind of convenient to do a top 10. But today we're doing the top 10 future projects that I want to come to James Gunn's DCU. So I can't guarantee at all that the projects that I'm going to rank in this video are going to be announced for the DCU. Again, these are the projects that I want to see. Having said that, though, some I am pretty damn sure will be coming. Leave me your own top 10 ranked by what you want most down in the comment section below. Leave a like on this video if you enjoy this kind of content in between news updates in the slow news cycle that we've got given the strike, and subscribe for more, of course. So number 10, let's get into this. Given everything we've been discussing recently out there in the news, I say slow news cycle, but to be honest, this has been kind of interesting. Number 10, drum roll, Wonder Woman. In terms of projects in the future, let me level here. Of course, I want one of the members of the DC Trinity to be announced for a DCU project. Now, you guys know my preference. Despite me covering the recent news, I do want a recast. And if we are looking at a recast, this is kind of what I want. Something establishing a new continuities and DCU version of Wonder Woman. And for now, obviously, since nothing's been announced, just simply Wonder Woman being part of the Trinity, being a huge iconic character in DC, it's obviously one of my most wanted things in the long run. But actually, having said that, to be fair, nothing has been announced with Wonder Woman right now, but we have had some major clues. So I totally forgot about this, but we did have James Gunn respond to a fan on Twitter back in March of this year saying a lot of Wonder Woman fans are really thinking she's getting an animated series. You better debunk this rumor soon before they create expectations. But James Gunn actually replies, I've been working on trying to get a Wonder Woman animated series up and running since I've been here. So he's been working kind of day one about getting something Wonder Woman animated. It would be kind of strange in a way to have the new potentially recasted Wonder Woman debut in an animated show, and then eventually we see her in live action. So I don't know if they do that. Maybe that would make that animated series Elseworlds. But then again, I feel like James Gunn is, as he said, making room for Elseworlds projects, but it needs to be a very, very high bar. He mainly wants DC TV shows, DC movies, and DC animation, if he can help it, to be cohesive and the same actors playing characters in the animated show or animated movie even will be the same actor playing the character in live action. So I don't know. Went on a bit of a tangent there. Let me know what you think of that. But clearly, I don't really need to say much more about Wonder Woman. I want Wonder Woman to have a presence in the DCU. She will obviously have a presence in the DCU. James Gunn has said that as well. He debunked a Variety story that was claiming that Wonder Woman wouldn't have a presence at all in the first 3 years of the DCU. He says, I hereby debunk it, in parentheses, only because it isn't true. So that tells me, if you technically extract his answer there will be a DCU Wonder Woman presence felt in the first 3 years. So does that mean, going back on what I was just saying, the animated Wonder Woman would be the first introduction to the DCU Wonder Woman? I don't know. Either way, Wonder Woman, I want her in the DCU. So number 9 in the projects that I want to see in James Gunn's DCU. Who do I want at number 9 as most wanted? The Terrifics. And it looks like that is maybe or most likely happening from what I'm observing right now, or maybe that could be something that will eventually be coming. Now, as many of you know, the Terrifics are kind of called the DC's version of the Fantastic Four. They are such a very fascinating group of characters. A lot of people want to see Plastic Man, Phantom Girl, Mr. Terrific played by Eddie Gathegi, and obviously Anthony Carrigan playing Metamorpho. So we've got kind of half the main team there. There are extra members that can come in and out, but just to keep it on the baseline here, their powers are absolutely brilliant. To see them work as a team in this universe that, as James Gunn sells it to us, is cohesive, heroes have existed. So this is what I mean. I can go off on a billion tangents right now. How long Has Mr. Terrific been Mr. Terrific in Superman Legacy within the DC Universe? Has he been Mr. Terrific longer than Clark? David Corenswet's Clark has been Superman? If so, does that mean Metamorpho has been a part of... Is the Terrifics team even a thing? Or is that something that is getting established or will be a fallout of the Superman Legacy movie? Because there's theories out there that Metamorpho, played by Anthony Carrigan, could get created in the movie. Now, the only thing is, I do feel like maybe the Terrifics aren't necessarily a team yet in the DCU because we haven't had any casting for Plastic Man or Phantom Girl. But then again, if I, answer my own question then, just because we haven't had that casting announced doesn't mean that they're not out there in the universe. It just means that, well, the casting hasn't been announced. Or even if it doesn't get announced, it doesn't mean that they're not out there or that they're not already in a team. It's just that Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho are only relevant to Superman Legacy. Plus, maybe James Gunn intends to cast them, but can't cast them right now because of the strike that's going on with the WGA and SAG-AFTRA. So, yeah, I could ramble about this all day long, but I would love to see them all in a group together. Even if there isn't a Terrifics team right away, I do think we'll get it, and I think it would probably... would it be better served as a movie or a series? I think a movie, would be cool. I mean, a series works, I feel, for, like, a lot of things, but... A Terrifics movie would be pretty cool, especially if they're already being decorated a little bit in Superman Legacy, even if they're not a team. Now, one thing I want to do as well with each ranking, kind of like what I did initially with number 10, is when can I vibe this project happening? Chapter 1 or Chapter 2? Well, this is hard because since we have less than half announced right now, and that's 10 projects, which entails that we're going to have 11 plus to complete Chapter 1, you could argue that we could get a Terrifics movie in Chapter 1, but then we've still got Chapter 2. So this one I would land into the field of could be a Chapter 1 project or a Chapter 2 one, like early Chapter 2, mid to late Chapter 1. If we had their own movie, it would be so cool to see them explore the dark multiverse for the first time. Maybe this is what I mean. We haven't got the Terrifics team yet, and that's how they meet Phantom Girl. They bring her back. Metamorpho's already there from Superman Legacy. But you see what I mean. You can kind of see how James Gunn's universe can grow out there from just a couple of characters being introduced in Superman Legacy, being Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho. But then as it goes on, you kind of get a little bit of some of the source material weaved in there with other characters coming in. And that could be the movie, The Terrifics, or TV show. Let me know your own responses there. All right, so number 8 for one of my most wanted projects in the DCU is... And this one's an interesting one because this is one of the ones I said right at the beginning. I don't know if every project I want here is going to be in the DCU, but the JSA. So, the reason why I put the JSA is, number one, my head keeps telling me we've got less than half the projects announced just for Chapter 1 right now. So many still yet to come just for Chapter 1, let alone Chapter 2. Number 2, Paradise Lost gave me hope that, okay, they are willing to do a prequel thing. Sure, you could say the Justice Society of America can be a present-day thing, just like kind of what Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson did with Black Adam, with Pierce Brosnan's Dr. Fate, loved him. We have Hawkman, loved him. And we had Atom Smasher and Cyclone, obviously. But I would prefer, and this is why I put it in one of my most wanted projects for the future of the DCU, a prequel, giving us an insight into the DCU's past. That could have happened with Creature Commandos, because Creature Commandos in the source material is a team kind of birthed in the 1940s in World War II. But that's been changed to modern day. But how about if we got a JSA in the past? That could be like, I think that is like insane potential. Now, I really wouldn't mind waiting in terms of project placement here till Chapter 2 for this. Because what they might want to do is really kind of get the audience set up with, okay, here's Superman. Here's the exposition set up for the audience of how different everything looks and the feel and the aesthetic, the tone of this DCU. Here's Brave and the Bold. Here's the Lantern show that you've now seen on Max. Like, so we've been through it a bit now in the DCU. So by the time another prequel comes along, possibly the second prequel, because again, we've only got one so far, Paradise Lost, you don't put it in there too early so you're like already diving into the DCU's past. I think that would be a mistake. You're not so familiar with what it's like in present day. Do you know what I mean? But have a few projects that have their time, get the audience familiar with it, and then, yeah, maybe you could have it towards the end of Chapter 1, or maybe as like a bonus Chapter 2 project. But then, after already experiencing Batman, Superman, Paradise Lost, Swamp Thing, Lanterns, The Authority. Maybe after all of that, it's like, hey, here's what heroes were like in the DC Universe decades and decades and decades ago, before Superman was around, before Batman was around, with Starman, Wildcat, Johnny Thunder, Dr. Fate. You could even chuck in Jay Garrick's Flash in there. Like, who knows? But do you see the vision that I'm going for here? Sure, some of you, I can immediately imagine in the comments might be like, oh, I don't know about prequel. I just want to get on with, the main canon and the overarching story of the DCU. I get what you're saying, but this is why I said, give it time. Let us get very familiar with multiple projects, and then it would be even cooler for us to absorb that much of present-day drama and whatever's going on in the DCU's main story that Gunn has been planning behind the scenes this whole time. And then you just go into the past and you're like, wow, okay. Because don't forget, Gunn has said this is a world in where heroes have existed for some time. We're hitting the ground running, as I always say. Superman isn't like the newest or the first superhero. So how cool would it be to get a peek into very big characters of the past? That is so cool to me, and I really do believe in this project in terms of it being a prequel. What would it be? I didn't really think of that. Should it be a series or a movie? I think a lot of people might be like a series. I think that could be cool as well. Maybe like a limited series, 6 to 8 episodes. Nothing too much, but nothing too little. This would still give it a bit more runtime to give more characters character development in terms of like a 6 to 8 episodes 1 hour slot TV series kind of thing on Max. Yeah, so maybe I'm leaning more towards TV series. This project at number 8, I would be vibing Chapter 2 as a bit of like a throwback. Most importantly, because again, the audience needs to get acquainted with present day to appreciate the past, I think. So yeah, really, 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 really would love a prequel JSA series. Number 7. Number 7 is a very interesting one. Now, this has been a fan desire for a long time. I'm a big fan of characters who are detectives. If you didn't know that already, I mean, I think you guys do. So, number 7 for one of my most wanted projects that I want to be announced in the DCU is The Question. Now, I think The Question has a bunch of potential. I'm going to say that every time, clearly. That's why they're in my most wanted top 10. But I do think the character that he is could be used in a very intricate way to whatever this overarching story is in the DCU. Now, that's not to say, like, if we got a Question series towards the end of Chapter 1 with the 11 plus projects that are yet to be announced or revealed, that he can't have his own, like, investigative things going on, right? But another example could be he could come in handy, and what I can imagine is he might already be established, again, with the whole heroes have existed. This might not be an origin. It could still pertain to his origin while exploring where he's at in present day. But going back into the main point, the other example could be, with the Lantern show, coming across this ancient, terrifying mystery that connects to the overarching story in the DCU, as Gunn puts it. What if the Question's character could be quite integral in investigating that? Sure, the Lanterns come across it, but if certain characters are already familiar with each other, you could argue that the Question might already be established and know people as well, and could investigate this himself. And clearly, as many of you, I assume, know, Rorschach was influenced by the character that is the Question. And with Rorschach and what he contributed to the Watchmen story, and what he, was investigating, and what he stumbled across, and how important that ended up being, that's kind of what I mean with what if we had a similar involvement with the Question in whatever this mystery storyline is in the DCU. Sure, we have all these individual storylines. We've got David Corenswet's Clark with Brosnahan doing whatever they're doing in Superman Legacy. Lanterns, we might get a bit of a feel for what else is going on. But Swamp Thing, fairly self-contained, although as Gunn says, it ripples out into the DCU still. But there's still going to be this bigger thing. So given that we've got the release order right now, which doesn't involve the Question, yes, I do want to say that he could still be in the 11 plus projects that are still yet to be announced for Chapter 1. I do think it should be a TV series. It's investigative, it's detective based. It is about time we had a live action project with Vic Sage coming in. And speaking of, actually, I did bring a screenshot along with me today in today's show and tell. And this could be a nice clue. We have this user here on Twitter saying, honest to God, if James Gunn gives us a live action version of The Question, I'll consider the DCU a success. And who liked that tweet? James Gunn. Now, of course, that doesn't mean, okay, question confirmed, but I do have a good feeling about this one. Could be one of the final 11 plus projects to be announced for Chapter 1. Could be wrong about that. Could be a Chapter 2 project, but I think they can squeeze him in the latter of Chapter 1. Let me know what you think. So, number 6 for my most wanted projects of James Gunn's DCU that I want bloody announced. Number 6 goes to some kind of Justice League Dark project. I know. I need it. I need it. Now, Justice League Dark characters. I don't know if the movie would literally be a Justice League Dark movie. And I already said movie, as if it wouldn't be a TV show. I don't know. I think maybe movie. I think this would obviously, just kind of jumping into it, this would spring off from Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing will tell the origin of Swamp Thing, as we know from James Mangold, very early teasing that. He's not necessarily interested in concentrating on making it connected to larger things in the franchise, but James Gunn did assure people in the Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters announcement video, all while it's completely outside the DCU, it will still connect, apparently. So I think getting into that side of things, if you're familiar with Swamp Thing, you know that once things maybe are established, like after the movie, certain other characters could get involved, and that is a Justice League Dark characters. So, for example, what about Zatanna, the Phantom Stranger, Constantine? Now, I have to admit, the way to approach this, I'm not exactly sure on right now. Do you go from Swamp Thing into separate projects, or do you kind of do a Justice League Dark thing, having built up to it maybe a bit more in another project, but then you introduce characters like Zatanna and others, but then maybe based off the success of that, then maybe you get a Zatanna series or a Zatanna movie separate and outside the adventure she just had in the Justice League Dark team-up. I don't know, but I think this one, or while I'm a bit more ambiguous on it, what it comes down to here in this video is what do I most want to see come eventually to the DCU, and that would be Justice League Dark characters. Whether that is in something called Justice League Dark, or somehow Swamp Thing spirals off and sprinkles into something Justice League Dark-esque, maybe with a team-up in some way, shape, or form, that would be a huge win for me. I do think, yeah, this would be in the latter of Chapter 1, if we're going to get some kind of mini-tease, or Chapter 2. I'm willing to wait until Chapter 2 for maybe a bigger Justice League Dark project, but maybe some tee-up in the end of Chapter 1 off the back of whatever happens in Swamp Thing. Now, number 5 and number 4 might be a bit of a weird ordering for some people, because you might flip it around, but I'm basing this off of what I most kind of want to see right now. Number 5 is Justice League, or some kind of new Justice League movie. Now, when looking at the DCU, and the fact that we have 2 chapters, we have Superman kicking everything off. We have a Batman movie with Damian Wayne coming in, but, you know, Batman's going to be in the DCU. We know Wonder Woman apparently is somewhere floating out there. You know we're going to get a Justice League movie. So, of course, in my top 10, one of my most wanted projects is to see Justice League. And yeah, it's at number 5, believe it or not, right now, for how I'm feeling right now, because there are other projects, especially number 4, that I put slightly above it in terms of anticipation. And that actually, number 4 that is, does contribute as to why Justice League is at number 5. But yeah, obviously Justice League is kind of weird to think about right now, because we haven't even got the beginning of Superman with David Corenswet. I have no idea what he's like as Superman. I'm really excited for it, but it does feel quite premature to talk about it. But the way I'm looking at it right now is just imagining a Justice League movie that has been built up to in a nice and organic, non-rushed way. Everything's cohesive. Characters have spent their time being fleshed out. Obviously, I want to see Batman interact with Superman and all these other characters, Martian Manhunter, and you name it. Seriously. Of course, I couldn't really, in my opinion, do this list without Justice League, especially when you can pretty much figure that we're going to get a Justice League movie at some point. But when? Some of you might say Chapter 2, but then some of you may be like, but if 10 projects have already been announced and that's less than half, then that means Chapter 1 is going to at least have just over 20, you know, with TV shows in mind as well as movies. Surely there might be a Justice League-esque project that ends Chapter 1. Maybe. I think I don't mind waiting quite a while for the Justice League movie, because I want whatever the 10 plus remaining projects of Chapter 1 are, or whatever they're going to be, they need to lead into that team up in a very organic way. But maybe they could save some time there slightly with some characters being a bit familiar. I think they need to actually show that kind of stuff on screen because that's very important to make the Justice League movie not feel like, hey, do I, as an audience member, really feel the relationship and dynamic between these characters? Which is why number 4, more wanted from me as a project to be announced, first of all, is a World's Finest or Trinity movie. And yes, that is technically 2 different projects, but I'll take either one, which is why I kind of put both of those at number 4. I want some kind of team up or like mini team up, like a preview of Justice League happening before Justice League. I think it's incredibly important to do one of these projects leading into an eventual, Justice League-esque thing. Whether that's Batman, Superman, and a World's Finest kind of thing, or maybe they're like, okay, instead of getting the Flash, Martian Manhunter, Cyborg, Green Arrow, like whoever you want in the Justice League, along with Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, how about we just do Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman doing something? That would be really cool. Just call it the Trinity. Okay, maybe they can come up with a better title. I don't know, but still. Or, again, Batman and Superman, World's Finest. I don't know. But that kind of pairing up, that kind of organic fleshing out to then eventually do a League movie is very, 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 very critical into the relationships that we're going to see be explored in the future. Why they decide to properly, if they do a Trinity movie or a World's Finest movie, we can even get conversations in that movie as to what they want to endeavor to do in the future by creating a League. Hey, I already know Hawkgirl from what happened to me in Superman Legacy. I know Guy Gardner. I know Mr. Terrific. Maybe we need to kind of create some, and don't forget, all while these projects are happening, there is like some kind of unknown big storyline in the DCU. Again, equivalent to Thanos-esque that is going on that we really don't know about right now. So they can develop all towards this in these prelude-esque kind of movies. And I think that's the pivotal word for me. Prelude. We need a prelude project involving the biggest characters in the Trinity before Justice League. I know I've said that 1,000 times. Now, when would I have it? This is why I was hesitant to put Justice League in Chapter 1 or even at the end of Chapter 1. I think maybe, some people might disagree with this, and maybe I do need to think more about it, but Justice League, some point in Chapter 2, potentially, and then do some kind of Trinity movie or World's Finest towards the end of Chapter 1, or maybe at the end of Chapter 1. But I know already, and even I'm thinking it, would you really save Justice League for Chapter 2? Because that's like the MCU not doing an Avengers movie until like many, many years into the MCU. That's what makes me hesitate. So maybe, again, this is what I mean. It's really hard to gauge it truly. With there being 10 plus projects left to be announced just for Chapter 1, maybe one of those could be a World's Finest. Maybe one of those could be a Trinity. And then you could get a Justice League ending Chapter 1. And then God knows what we're going to get in the 20 plus projects of Chapter 2. It's kind of hard to gauge, but my takeaway is for sure, Prelude project, World's Finest or Trinity. Hard for me to pick because I would actually love them both. I would love a Batman, Superman movie, but I would also love just a Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman movie. And I know some people are like, we've kind of seen that in BVS, but I'm talking like from the get-go, they all like each other, and they're all united in doing something. So let me know what you think. All right, so number 3 for me, it comes back to what I was talking about quite a few minutes ago. But this is very biased to me, my most wanted. Now, do I think this project will be announced? This is one of the ones where it's just like, I don't know. It could. Number 3, for my most wanted, top 10 to be announced in the DCU is Constantine. I need it. I don't know what much more else to say then. You guys know who John Constantine is. He is one of my favorite characters. I need a movie cinematic level Constantine. I don't want to repeat everything I said about the Justice League Dark ranking, but if there was a Constantine movie, I could deal with him being introduced in some kind of joint project with other characters, like with Zatanna and whatnot, if it is kind of Justice League Dark-esque, a series or a movie or whatever. But I do feel like diving into Swamp Thing, that's spiraling off, like it splats out into all different directions with all different kind of possibilities in the supernatural occult world side of things in the DCU. Constantine could be so successful. I'm just going to keep this one short and sweet. I don't really have much else to say about Constantine, but very biased to my own interests here. I want him in the DCU that much. He's my number 3 out of all of those other projects. Yes, subjectively, I would, if I saw a Deadline article saying Constantine in the DCU actually happening, that would kind of blow my mind more than the Trinity announcement. It'd be like, it's kind of something I wouldn't be surprised by, even though I'd be excited by it. Again, they're all in my top 10, but Constantine, I'd fanboy out more. Way more. So number 2. Number 2, I almost put at number 1. This is actually a weird thing. It's like my previous top 10. Very hard for me to figure out if I wanted this at number 1. But you'll maybe tell why I put my number 1 at number 1. So number 2 for my top most wanted to be announced DCU movie or show is Green Arrow. You've heard me talk about Oliver Queen a lot and how I need this motherfucking character in. Like, yeah, I've had an Arrow show. Yes, a lot of you and I have enjoyed that, but it wasn't really, if you want to get down to the brass tacks of it, like Green Arrow. And I trust a lot of you know what I mean by that with the other characters that they drew influence from and put into Oliver Queen. But Oliver Queen in the DCU, I just feel like I don't need to talk about this. I know some people probably aren't as excited for me, or should I say want this as much as I do, to put it at number 2 above everything else. But I think it would be really successful. Like, sure, we've got Bruce Wayne as a vigilante, but imagine another vigilante with a different skill set, an archer. I wouldn't mind if he's a ways into his vigilante career, given, again, that we know that this universe is where heroes have already existed before Superman even goes public. So maybe Oliver Queen was doing his thing like Batman for quite a while. I also wouldn't mind if they kind of change it up and it's called like Green Arrow and the Black Canary. Maybe they're already together, and we see whatever kind of storyline with them both having tackled it in the events of the movie. Or I don't think it will be a show. I think Green Arrow should be a movie. But going back to what I said a second ago, I mean, I guess you could make it Green Arrow origin if you want to, but at the same time, maybe you could do like a story in present day where it once again pertains to his origin, like what Swamp Thing is going to do. You kind of go back to Oliver Queen on the island and, how he got to where he is now, because, this isn't like a Batman or Superman situation where they deliberately want to skip over that. We've seen the Martha, Crime Alley, and Thomas Wayne thing. We've seen, Superman, Clark land on Earth a billion times, Krypton blowing up. But Oliver, I think the general audience who aren't as familiar with Green Arrow, could see a new iteration on his origin experience. But maybe they might still decide against that, because a lot of people have watched the CW show, which, or while it doesn't go insanely accurate, it gives you a good gist of the concept of the character. But either way, without too much more rambling, Green Arrow is clearly at number 2, one of my most wanted DCU projects that could possibly be announced by James Gunn in the future. And one thing I have on my side is that I know from what James Gunn has said before, he's a big fan of the Green Arrow. So never say never. Now, project placement here. Honestly, I'm easy. I can wait. If we're getting it, if it was announced for Chapter 2, I'd be like, okay. All right. To be honest, it depends if, I suppose, they do a Justice League movie and if Oliver is a part of that lineup. But I am just begging. Like, I think, how Swamp Thing's going to be fairly self-contained, kind of outside the DCU of what James Gunn said in that announcement video. I really wouldn't mind if, like, Oliver eventually connects to bigger things, maybe even Justice League, like he knows other characters. But the movie that we get, similar to what Mangold is doing, similar to what Swamp Thing even is, even though it will eventually ripple out and that character will ripple out into the DCU, I would be perfectly fine with just seeing Oliver Queen have his own story in Star City and just be a kick-ass Green Arrow movie. And eventually, yeah, sure, have it connect, but damn, just give me something separate maybe with Oliver Queen and see how it goes. Okay, guys, so we've arrived at my number 1, and this is one that I think could happen. But I'm so split in terms of how will this character or characters be actualized. I've kind of done another thing where it could be like 2 projects. I don't know which one it will be. So my number 1 is involving the character of Nightwing / the Titans. So the reason why I label it like that is because Some people say they want both, and that could be a thing. So they could do a Nightwing solo project, and we could get a Titans solo, like, max series in the DCU, right? But I also just wouldn't be surprised. The reason why I listed it like that is because I wouldn't be surprised if outside of the Brave and the Bold movie, where we will see Dick Grayson in that, I'm very sure of that, given that we've been teased that we will see the Bat family in that movie. I wouldn't be surprised if Nightwing's next appearance is just in the Titans. But let's just say again, wouldn't be surprised if there's a movie in where it's fairly Nightwing focused, whatever adventure he goes on, but the ending, like the connective tissue to whatever the future project is, maybe he's thinking of starting a Titans team. But the main thing I do want to see is the Titans. I think I would say that. I really, 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 really want that. And of course, Nightwing being right at the top of my list, personally for me. It's just very hard to tell, again, with how much I just padded this question out, with how they'll execute that first. You know, Nightwing solo movie first, Titans second, or just after Brave and the Bold, smush it all into one, and Titans, the project, is maybe coming first. I do think, and you may have heard me talk about this before, if we get a Titans project, it will be surrounding Deathstroke as their villain, as their adversary there. James Gunn has teased to fans before that maybe, you know, I might be working on something Deathstroke related, and I think James, knowing the source material very well, would put Deathstroke as a Titans villain rather than what I see a lot of people say today as a Batman villain. Now, I'm not one to gatekeep. Like, you can have villains be any hero's villain. So yes, you can have Deathstroke be a Batman villain. I'm not against it at all. That's kick-ass. But I do think that Gunn, in my take here, would make Deathstroke, as per the source material, primarily and originally a Titans villain, and something for the Titans and Nightwing to overcome without necessarily the big names of DC like Batman having to help him out. And that would be really cool. Again, a somewhat traditional yet innovative, of course, because you want to put your own stamp on it, Titans Nightwing story with Deathstroke getting involved would be absolutely brilliant. But I really do think that there could be a lot of meat here with that. I know some people would be like, oh, but we've had a Titans show. Yes, we have had a Titans show on HBO Max, but again, this would be like a new iteration. It would be part of a cinematic universe level side of things. Characters that were initially introduced in Brave and the Bold, but like, you know, pertaining to a much larger thing. Now, in terms of Chapter 1 or Chapter 2, I think because we're going to have Dick Grayson teased in the Brave and the Bold, and that is in the first 10 project lineup of what we've had announced so far. Given that we've got 10 plus projects left for Chapter 1, I think that the follow-up would be in those final 10 before we get to Chapter 2. Now, I could be wrong about that, and also it depends upon how they're going to set it up. Maybe they could save the Titans project for Chapter 2, but in the final 10-plus projects to be announced for Chapter 1 to close it off, there could be a Nightwing movie or something like that, then leading into the connective tissues at the end of the movie, teeing up that Titans project. But yeah, final word on that is, I just need these characters in the new DCU, and I've got a good feeling that they will be coming in some way, shape, or form. And that ends my ranking for my top 10 most wanted projects for the DCU that I really hope get announced. But down in the comments below, guys, let me know your most wanted projects that you would like James Gunn to hopefully announce in the future. Not only name the projects that I might not have even put on my list, but also do rank them in terms of priority or like what you want to see most. I honestly can't wait to see your own lists. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting read. But yeah, I've been blabbering on for long enough, so all that's left to say is I just really appreciate a like on this video. It helps the video and the channel out a ton. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, of course. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the DCU in the next video. Goodbye.